UFC Fight Night 88, Thomas Almeida versus Cody Garbrandt is officially in the books, and what a fight card it was. We saw Cody Garbrandt officially make a name for himself in the UFC Bantamweight division, defeating the number 7th ranked fighter in the Bantamweight division in Thomas Almeida via a first round knockout with 2 minutes 53 seconds into the fight. Garbrandt officially makes a name for himself, and he's going to be put into the Nexus Sports Network's official rankings for MMA. Also, he's going to be making its way into the bantamweight rankings for the first time in his career on the UFC. This was a huge event for Cody Garbrandt to make a name for himself. He is a guy that goes from being on, I want to say, Fight Pass prelims to Fox Sports 1 prelims, early fight prelims for the Fox Sports 1, to becoming a main eventer. Cody Garbrandt, one of the most, under-recognized kind of fighters. He's a guy who's fighting out of Team Alpha Male. He's in Uriah Faber's corner on Uriah Faber's team. And what a way to make a big impact. You're going out there, you're in Las Vegas, you're in the Mandalay Bay Events Center, and you make a name for yourself defeating the number 7th ranked bantamweight fighter in Thomas Almeida. But the question that lingers ahead for you guys is, what is next for Cody Garbrandt? A guy who is not even ranked. Does he get into the top 15? Does he get into the top 10? I think that he's made a big enough name for himself to take out the number 7 ranked fighter. It can probably end up getting him probably in that number 11. I still think John Dodson, if you were to put him and John Dodson together in a fight, I think Dodson will get the better of, probably get the better of Cody Garbrandt, but it's going to be a very, neck and neck kind of a fight. I think that Dodson's a little bit more faster than Cody Garbrandt, and that's why I think that Dodson could potentially end up squeezing out a victory. But we have not seen that yet, and we'll see that possibly down the line, hopefully. I think that'll be a really good fight, but I think this is where Cody Garbrandt will probably open up in the rankings at number 11. I think that, you put Lineker, a guy who is still rising in the bantamweight division. I think you take a step back with Lineker and put Cody Garbrandt in. And I think Cody Garbrandt could, defeat guys like Johnny Eduardo, Frankie Saenz, and also Eddie Wineland, who's been on a very lengthy, absence streak from the UFC. I think Eddie Wineland's actually going to be coming back to the UFC within the next month or two. So always keep your head up on that, Eddie Wineland. But I think Cody Garbrandt has made a big enough impact to get within the rankings. So let's talk about the future of, the fighters and the winners and the losers of this card. The future really is bright for Cody Garbrandt, and this is where I want to bring in the Bryan Caraway Aljamain Sterling fight. Bryan Caraway defeated Sterling, I want to say via unanimous, or a split decision, I should say. A very close neck and neck kind of fight. You had Bryan Caraway, who's number 8th ranked bantamweight in the UFC, defeating the number 4th ranked Aljamain Sterling. I think this is how it should tie it into. Cody Garbrandt wants to fight on the next UFC wants to fight on UFC 203 in Cleveland. And I think they should do it. I think that's a long time for him to, get back into the gym. He did not take a lot of shots on Thomas Almeida. I think he'll be fine. Give him a couple of weeks to, decompress and just get back into the gym and start training. I think that the UFC should start looking at possibly having Cody Garbrandt take on Bryan Caraway at UFC 203. And then the winner of that fight should get the number 1 contendership for the Bantamweight Championship. I think the winner should get a number one contender fight, possibly against either the winner of, I think it may be TJ Dillashaw, or whoever's next in line for a title fight. Who rose up to the occasion. Is it going to be Dominick Cruz going to be the champion? If Dominick Cruz loses the championship to Uriah Faber, I think it could be Dominick Cruz versus Caraway. It could be Dominick Cruz versus Cody Garbrandt. It could go down either way, but if Cody Garbrandt defeats Dominick Cruz somehow, and you have Uriah Faber versus Cody Garbrandt, that's going to be pretty interesting. But these are all scenarios that could come about down the line. But that's the way that I would book it. If Cody Garbrandt is really trying to go for that title, you really want to bank on Dominick Cruz winning that title, because I don't think you want to fight your mentor, the guy who brought you in Uriah Faber. TJ Dillashaw didn't want to do it when he was with Team Alpha Male. Uriah Faber did not want to fight TJ Dillashaw when Dillashaw won the Bantamweight Championship. It's just a very wishy-washy situation. Team Alpha Male, they're like a family. It's kind of hard fighting one of your brothers, basically. So I can understand that, 100% of the way. So that's the way I would plan it down the line. Get Garbrandt on UFC 203 to take on Bryan Caraway, and then just let the future, let the the decisions come from Dana White and Sean Shelby, down the line. I cannot 100% really put into a scenario and how that could go about, but it all comes up to the matchmakers. That's the way I would book it. I would first book Bryan Caraway versus Cody Garbrandt at UFC 203. Now let's talk about the losers of the fight. The number 4th ranked Aljamain Sterling, like I said, lost to Bryan Caraway in the UFC Fight Pass prelims, and then on top of that, you saw Thomas Almeida got knocked out in the first round against Cody Garbrandt. I would put those two on for a future fight card. I don't know if maybe a 204. You can put them on a UFC Fight Night. Maybe a UFC Fight Pass based fight night card. There's a lot of scenarios and a lot of different, aspects you can put into a fight like this. I think both of these fighters need to have a high-ranked fight. I would expect Thomas Almeida to fall maybe to number 8 in the rankings. Maybe I would put, Aljamain Sterling at number 5 or maybe a number 6. So it's very, up in the air on where they'll be placed within the rankings. But I think that Almeida versus Aljamain Sterling at a future date will be more than necessary for the actual card. So, hopefully that will be coming down, down the line. We'll get more information as time comes on. But I think that, Almeida and Sterling need to fight at some point to really, get a win streak, get a win underneath their belt so that they can continue on. But a loss for one of these guys going on a 2-fight losing streak will not benefit them a lot. I think that they can end up the loser of a Sterling versus Almeida fight. They could potentially be looking at maybe a fight outside the top 10, or maybe a fight against John Dodson. If John Dodson does not have a fight, down the line, maybe towards the end of the year, maybe where Dodson, lands at that time. Maybe, one of those guys could get a Dodson fight. And a victory over Dodson is always going to be good to kind of bounce back from, because he is a top fighter currently within the UFC, a very, underlooked at kind of guy, in my opinion. But he's a guy that's really fantastic. I think that he puts on great fights. And imagine a fight with, him, Sterling, or even Thomas Almeida versus John Dodson. I think that would be an excellent fight, going possibly down near the end of the year. But, always never say never, keep an open mind on that one. So let's go and recap the rest of the fight card and leave your guys' predictions and your thoughts on who's going to be fighting who down the line, and what really makes a lot of sense. In the featherweight division, we saw Jeremy Stephens in the co-main event spoil Renan Barão's featherweight debut. I was very impressed with the way Jeremy Stephens really presented himself today, and a victory over Barão could potentially give him a title fight down the line. If an injury does come to Frankie Yeager or Jose Aldo, Jeremy Stephens even said at the post-fight press conference he would love to fill in and really get that title fight. I think he's really overdue for a title fight, and a victory over Renan Barão really sets the record straight that he should be getting a title fight sooner rather than later. Rick Story comes back, defeats Tarek Saffiedine via unanimous decision. This is a card that had 8 or 9 unanimous decisions, and Rick Story really took it to Tarek Saffiedine. Saffiedine is currently 2-2 in his UFC career. Needs to come back. He's the former Strikeforce welterweight champion, the final Strikeforce welterweight champion. He needs to get back to that old form that he had, a lot of success before coming to the UFC. It's just been, like a slippery slope for him. Get a victory here, lose a fight there, get a victory, lose a fight. What's next for Tarek Saffiedine? I could potentially end up writing a blog for this and, probably give my thoughts on who should be next for each and one of these fighters on the main card. Chris Camozzi returns to the octagon. He defeated Vitor Miranda via unanimous decision. Lorenz Larkin gets a much-needed victory, defeating Jorge Masvidal. In a very close fight. It was you can basically, fight that, write that fight, back or forth. You can give it to either or guy, but Lorenz Larkin, never leave it in the hands of the judges, and Larkin defeats Masvidal via a split decision, 29-28, 28-29, 29-28. Paul Felder defeated Josh Berkman via unanimous decision. In the preliminary card, in the main event, we saw Sarah McMahon defeat Jessica Ai. And to end this video, preliminary card on UFC Fight Pass, Bryan Caraway defeats Aljamain Sterling via a split decision, a very close fight. But needless to say, we saw a whole new Bryan Caraway, and hopefully the Caraway and Garbrandt fight happens at UFC 203 in Cleveland. I'll catch you guys in our next video. Thank you so much for checking out tonight's video. Have a safe night. Happy Memorial Day to everybody out there. Veterans, we're thinking about you every single day. All the warriors that we lost, every single person that we lost in past wars, battles, you guys are in our hearts. We love you guys, and thank you so much for stay and looking down at us. We'd like to thank you for everything that you have done. We love you guys. Happy Memorial Day to everybody. You guys have a safe night. My name's Justin Kish, and I'll catch you guys next.